Forget everything you've ever heard about life existing underground up until now. Because perhaps the most fascinating example lies right beneath our feet, waiting in Nefshehir for thousands of years without ever seeing the sun, still shrouded in unsolved mysteries. In the early 1960s, a villager, while renovating his house, discovered that his home opened up into a large tunnel after he knocked down a wall. Although the man initially thought it was just a small cave, when he entered with a lantern, he encountered asylums, churches, strange places of worship. Homes, in short, an entirely different world. So much so that, as would later be understood, this was a massive underground city where 50,000 people once lived for many years without ever seeing sunlight. And people asked the question, who could have lived underground for centuries? And why? The story goes back to the early years of Christianity, to the powerful Roman Empire. Christians fleeing from Roman soldiers built underground cities in Cappadocia, where they could hide themselves. This underground city, whose entrance was hidden among the bushes through a small hollow, had such an incredible structure that all the rooms were interconnected. And even though it would have been impossible with the technology of that era, thanks to the ventilation system, the entire city maintained the same temperature and was filled with clean air throughout the year. Inside, priests, clergymen, families, children, about 50,000 people created the same life as above ground. There was even a large and airy mental asylum. No other underground city in the world has such a complex system. The houses are sealed with sliding doors. Even today, the entirety of this massive structure has yet to be fully discovered. As the Derinkuyu underground city is studied, the questions that arise remain unanswered one after another. Because even if the first Christians settled here while fleeing from soldiers, how could they have managed to build such a structure when it would be impossible to construct even today? Even if we assume that they built this city, it would only be possible with the intense labor spanning hundreds of years. Because the city is so large and there is such a complex system inside that just the excavation work underground would require thousands of workers. Moreover, if we consider that the total weight of the rocks and soil that needed to be removed from inside is 8 million tons, it would be hundreds of times more than Derinkuyu. Even the smaller basilica cistern could only be built after decades of work, and during its construction, hundreds of workers died in workplace accidents. But how possible is it that the people of that era, or fugitives, could have built this technologically advanced city, which was constructed with features like sliding doors, schools, mental hospitals, water systems, and even ventilation methods in such a short time? To investigate this mystery, experts from all over the world flocked to Derinkuyu. In his book Chariots of the Gods, researcher Van Deniken has dedicated a special section to Derinkuyu. Deniken, who came to the region and conducted investigations with his team for weeks, says the following about Derinkuyu in his book. These cities could only have been built to protect against attacks coming from the air, because we believe that Derinkuyu is connected to other underground cities in Cappadocia by tunnels. Therefore, this vast, incredibly large underground city could only have been built to protect against extraterrestrial attacks. Now, I'm going to share some facts with you that will surprise you. Above the Derinkuyu underground city, there is a village called Derinkuyu, where villagers live today. There is a very old story told in this village and in the surrounding villages. The story has been passed down from generation to generation in the region, and its origin is unknown. According to the story, a long time ago, angels or some other beings existed on these lands. But after a while, some malevolent jinn-like beings came from the sky again, and a great war broke out between them. Since the good beings could not cope with the evil jinn, they built these underground cities and hid inside the earth. According to the villagers' claims, these beings are still here, living underground, and they even assert that lights occasionally rise from there. It could be thought that the story and these claims are made for tourism purposes. However, the fact that villagers here have been telling such stories for more than 200 years, and that many legends about these beings have circulated, disproves the idea that it is a lie made up for tourism purposes, since the city had not yet been discovered in those years. What is interesting is that archaeologists believe there are many more underground cities in the Nevşehir region that have yet to be uncovered. If this is true, it means there is an underground country in Anatolia. Don't let this surprise you, because the landforms I described in another video are also interesting enough to serve as evidence that strange beings lived in this region. The tracks you see belong to areas within the borders of Cappadocia, near the Derinkuyu underground city, and they continue for kilometers. According to research, the tracks, which are understood to be over 1 million years old, resemble certain wheel marks from very ancient periods in history. The tracks, which continue for kilometers without even a centimeter of disruption, are also found in the same way in places like Italy and Greece, where there are other underground cities. Perhaps the question that surprised us at the beginning of the video, how millions of tons of rock and soil were transported, might be answered by these tracks. And the sounds and sightings claimed by villagers living around the Derinkuyu underground city are similarly recounted by people living near other underground cities around the world. Villagers living near Hangsondung, the world's deepest cave which still hasn't been fully explored, also have similar claims. While it is believed that the Dalton Caves in Norway are an underground city that stretches all the way to Scotland, people living in the area have claimed for centuries that strange sounds are sometimes heard, and certain entities have been seen. According to archaeologist and author Ernest Bentak, an underground network in the southern Hanz Mountains extends all the way to Iran. In Hungary, there is also an underground tunnel that is 60 kilometers long. The earliest records about the tunnel, which is thought to have been built using advanced technology, date back to before the Common Era. However, there is no idea as to who built it. In Afghanistan, according to claims, there is an underground tunnel and city system that extends all the way to the ocean. In legends, this place is called Agartha. In West Africa, the Atlantic Ocean, there is a tunnel that opens beneath the water. Where the tunnel leads still hasn't been discovered. However, according to the claims of the locals, strange sounds and entities occasionally make their presence known here as well. These are just some of the examples I mentioned. Don't the similarities, the signs, the millions of years old tracks with massive wheel marks around the underground cities, and the strange stories told by people living near every underground system, the sounds they've heard, the entities they've seen also stir strange feelings in you? The Derinkuyu underground city in Cappadocia, however, is incredibly even stranger than all the others. Even today, only about 10% of it is open to the public. Despite being such a well-protected settlement where people lived for many years, and there is no apparent danger, it is strictly forbidden to see more than just a small part of it. Only a very few archaeologists who have obtained special permission are allowed to go further. Those who have been there say, there isn't just a city inside, there's an entirely different world inside. Perhaps there really was an underground country beneath the Anatolian landscape, the very ground we walk on. How could people have lived for centuries in places that even scientists today cannot descend into or explore? Even today, when building storage facilities just a few meters underground or constructing the basement floors of skyscrapers, we have to use the latest technology to prevent humidity and other natural problems. So, how could people in ancient times have built these places? How could they have managed it? None of the questions we ask have been fully answered by any official or researcher.